The summer that was supposed to be ordinary became one of Lydia's most haunting memories. She was only 13 when her parents sent her to a summer camp near Lewiston, New York. Lydia was angry at her parents for leaving her there for the whole summer. Most of the time, she kept to herself, avoiding the other kids, and spent her days feeling lonely and frustrated. One evening, while everyone was gathered around the fire, Lydia stayed alone in her cabin. Lost in her thoughts, something outside caught her eye. Between the trees, on the edge of the forest, she saw the shadowy outline of a man in a hood, looking toward the building. Lydia couldn't tell if he was looking directly at her, but it was enough to give her an uneasy feeling. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, but the following evening, when she stayed back alone again, the shadowy figure appeared once more, watching from the woods. Lydia felt the tension in her chest but was afraid to tell anyone, not wanting to be labeled as the scared girl. During these days, the only person Lydia felt comfortable with was Hernando, the camp cook. To her, he seemed kind, almost like the grandfather she never had. He was the only adult who noticed her sadness and loneliness. They spent many hours talking. Lydia shared her dreams of going to college and living far from home. Hernando would smile and tell her about his granddaughter, who was around her age. She felt a little safer knowing he was around. But if Lydia had known that the man in the hood and Hernando were one and the same, and that he was a dangerous predator with a history of severe mental illness. One evening, Lydia noticed the figure standing closer than before. He was near the camp's edge, and now she could clearly see it was Hernando. For a moment, an icy fear gripped her heart. Why would the cook she trusted be watching her from the woods? Lydia froze, unsure of what to do. She watched as Hernando disappeared into the darkness of the forest, and her heart began to pound. From that moment on, she no longer felt safe. Every night she could almost sense him watching her, either outside her window or walking the corridors of the camp. In the mornings, Hernando would appear as if nothing had happened, smiling and asking if everything was all right. Lydia didn't know how to tell anyone about it. She even started to question herself, wondering if it was just her imagination. One day, Lydia gathers the courage to talk to Hernando. "Hernando, last night, I saw you by the woods. It was you, wasn't it?" "Oh, Lydia, you must be mistaken. I was just making my rounds, checking to make sure everything was safe." His answer should have comforted her, but it didn't. Deep inside, she felt that something was wrong. And that night, things got much worse. On the final night of camp, Lydia was jolted awake by the sound of her cabin door creaking open. She froze with terror, unable to move or scream. A man in a hood stepped quietly into her cabin. As he got closer, she recognized the face of Hernando, but his usual kind smile had turned into something sinister. The smile of a predator. Lydia ran as fast as she could, never looking back. She reached the central area of the camp where the others gathered each night and collapsed, breathless and shaking. When the adults rushed to her aid, they went to check Hernando's cabin, but he was already gone. The next morning, the police arrived, combing through the forest and the camp. They found nothing except one disturbing piece of evidence: a large butcher knife, half buried in the dirt near the edge of the woods. It was the only clue left behind after Hernando's mysterious disappearance. Lydia eventually returned home, but every night she felt the same unease, as if Hernando was still out there somewhere, hiding in the shadows. She could never shake the memory of his cold, predatory smile on that final night in camp, or the feeling that he was somehow still watching her.